Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. This is Victor. Today I want to talk immigration. So, what do you know about early U.S. immigration history?
Well, very little bit I've read. The founding fathers, I believe it was right around when the Constitution was instituted in the 1780s.
Right, 1789.
That the country was for white people of good character, was what I remember.
Controversial, eh? And then,
well, it wasn't then.
Right. And it's funny because after that, they're going to say that's not a good enough of a metric. And we need even a better metric because if you were to say white person of good character, there's a lot of those people we also don't want.
Okay.
So, but I just basically when we're talking about this video, I'm going to say that every single thing you hear on TV from your friends, from radio, from new books or anything like that, from politicians, every single thing that they say about immigration is wrong. They're lying to you. It's propaganda.
Okay.
So, like you said, United States of America was founded for exclusively white people, and the terrible things they did to black people, that's terrible.
Yeah, definitely.
Terrible, But that's what it was. And so when they say e pluribus unum, they're saying out of many groups of specifically very northwestern white people from Europe, one. Out of those people, one. They're not saying out of all Europeans, because they're definitely not talking about Eastern Europeans, Southern Europeans. Do you know what I'm saying? So when they tell you, oh, it's a diversity, it's a melting pot, that's not in the eyes of the founding fathers at all. And you could say that they're wrong, or you could say that they're right, but we're just talking about history. And so then I just want to show you the path that our immigration took.
Where we started and where we ended up.
Right. And so it was for the British, and then there's the Dutch, and look, I just want to point out too that even if you look at those early groups that came over who were the e pluribus unum groups, still you had problems because they were so diverse that there were still problems. So today you still have the Pennsylvania Dutch. Some of them don't speak English, they just speak German because they e pluribus didn't unum. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you look at Quebec and they have the French,
True.
And it's the dominant language and this and that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that or what the Pennsylvania Dutch are doing. But what I'm saying is the experiment was too diverse back then when they said specifically Northwestern, so that it didn't work in some minor ways that turned out to be not that bad. I mean, it wasn't riot in the streets bad or something like that. And so what happened is you can tell what the intent of America was, of the immigration policy of the United States was, because at some points they tried to pull it back and say, wait, we've gone too far. So there's a lot of different immigration laws. I want to focus on a couple that are particularly relevant. So basically what happened is in 1921, they did the Emergency Quota Act. And this was the first attempt to regulate immigration by setting admission quotas based on nationality.
Okay, so what was the problem they were trying to fix going into this?
The problem they were trying to fix is they don't want too many people to come from one region.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then they realized that wasn't... Okay, so basically on that one, the number of immigrants of each nationality allowed to immigrate to the United States each year to 3% of the foreign-born persons of the nationality present in the United States as of the 1910 census. So you go back to the 1910 census and you say, how many Germans were there, right? There were X amount. Cool. We'll allow immigration from Germany of 3% of that amount.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so there were new people coming in. There were new people coming in all the time. But like the Irish had the potato famine at one point. So you got a lot of Irish immigration. They don't get along with the British because of old world problems between those two, And then you got the Italians coming over and...
But the law makes the ratio stay the same.
Right. So that's what the law was trying to do, was keep the ratios the same so that the situation didn't get worse and we didn't get more diversity and end up with, organized crime mafias or whatever, Sicilian.
Like
I don't
too
know.
many of one group that would dominate.
Right. Or even just groups that didn't want to be a part of the experiment. Do you know what I'm saying?
But is it natural to like in human nature to want to be a part of that experiment? Is that a natural thing to be with people who aren't like you?
But how much not like you are you talking about? So it depends on the degree of the extreme of the not like you.
Okay.
Because what's the difference between an Englishman and a Frenchman? There are distinct differences, language, culture, there's all types of things. But the English controlled Normandy at one point. There was a lot of intermarrying. They're not that different from each other.
But if you put those two groups together, do the English people all end up living together and the French people all end up living together?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I wouldn't say so in the new world.
Okay.
In the old world, I would say that they would, because they distinctly want their culture, because their culture is superior. Whichever side's talking, and good on you for valuing your own culture. And they're two beautiful cultures, honestly. So then basically what happened is they realized that was way too much immigration for them. That 3%
was too high
of 1910. So that was done in 1921. So 3 years later, they did the last big push to save America. And so it was 1924 National Origins Quota Act, known as the Johnson-Reed Act, right? So this changed to 3% to 2%, and it changed the year of the census from 1910 to 1890.
Oh, interesting.
So now we want to go back 2 decades from 1910 to 1890 when the better proportions of people were here.
Interesting.
And drop a third of the amount from each of those countries that can come. So
the idea was to slowly revert back to what it was in 1890.
Right. And then it depends on, like different groups that were coming over with Catholics. So they're going to have more kids. It's going to become what it is. But if you live in a great country where they're giving away free land, if you'll just go settle it and stuff like that, you're going to have an unlimited number of applicants. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Almost. As in regards to what you could absorb, you've got unlimited amount. So should we be selective or not selective? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, give me let's see, we could do the best or the worst. What should we do? Oh, that's good poem on the Statue of Liberty, and we'll take your weary and your terrible. Anyways, so this is what America was made to be, not what they tell you on TV it was made to be. That's the opposite. Now you could say, hey, we really want to do something else with it. Because, like we could make this beautiful multicultural society and this and that, Every single one of those has dissolved along racial boundaries,
For thousands of years.
Thousands of years. Yeah, we could do Greece, we could do Rome, we could do Yugoslavia, just tiny partitions into just specific, you know what I'm saying? And you could say I'm wrong if we all shared common values. It technically could be a thing. But it's kind of like we were talking about in that the national anthem video.
Okay.
It's kind of like the problem with race. There's no problem with race technically. It's that it's a wedge. It's a huge crack in your society that can be manipulated. And if you want to live in a utopia, everybody could just be utopia minded. It would take one terrible, degenerate political ideology to put something in the wedge and start hammering away. And it's just an incredible weakness. Founding fathers knew this, obviously, and they were trying to create basically a European country in the New World.
Right. Is
what they wanted. They didn't want a multicultural country in the New World. So anyways, how the story goes is like this. Basically, there was World War II, right? And there was this push by these people called the Frankfurt School, right? And they were all people of the Jewish religion.
This was in Germany.
Yeah, in and out of Germany. Yeah, that's what the name is for, right? But a lot of them are in America at this time,
Oh, post World War II.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so keep in mind that we found out about genes, Mendel, in the 1890s, I believe, right?
Okay.
And so everybody's like, oh, there's genetics involved in all this stuff, and people are going wild with their theories. In America, we're what are we doing? Sterilizing people.
Okay.
We do we do all types of wild stuff on this genetic thing, right? Frankfurt School came and they wanted power. So they said, hey, actually all that genetic stuff is garbage. We need to go back to thinking pre-1890s and say everything is environmental. Every one of your behaviors, every one of your predilection tendencies, everything is just environmental.
I didn't even realize that that's what they thought before genetics.
Right. Well, it wasn't a thing though.
Right.
It really wasn't a thing. Like there are these magical things called genes. And dude, are you a wizard? Like, what are you talking about? You know? And so it's like the theory they gave is that you could take any random kid from anywhere in the world and you can put them in an upper class suburban household and they would perform terrifically.
Gotcha.
And the problem is so that was scientifically false, you know? And so what happened is, but people believed it. And they came out like the United Nations was formed and they did a thing, all human beings are equal 100%. No, it's a fake news. Look at the NBA. We talked about that before as well. But what I'm saying is they tried to change people's perceptions by pretending that everybody's equal. If everybody is equal, then we can melt and pot it up.
Totally.
Because we're all just clones of a human.
Right.
And we're just whatever the people around us influence, but it's not the truth. So then, of course, science came back around and said, no, this percent, then this percent. Last I looked, they were at over 50% of your personality is determined by your genetics, strictly alone, just genetics.
Okay.
It's, your predisposition to staying married, to getting married, to religion, to lying. Like it just goes down the line. All the things that you are, not all of them because it's over 50%, but it's just your genetics.
Was that story of the twins that were separated? You told me about?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a great story.
Right. Okay. So, the Nazis did their terrible experiments on twins where they just looked at two twins and that was, mad scientists, right? So then we go back to the Dark Ages and then it's like 50 years later, we're like, maybe we should 60 years later. Let's look at some twins. Let's analyze some twins. So now we're okay with being mad scientists because, Nazis bad. So basically, yeah, they found these twins and it was like one in North America and one in South America. And the exact situations, I don't recall exactly, but they ended up both speaking the same language.
But they were separated at a really young age.
Yeah, I think at birth, right? Okay. And to totally different families, totally different countries, cultures.
Yeah.
And they picked the same second languages to learn. They picked the same, in college, they picked the same majors. They were just close to being identical. Like so much of it was influenced by the genes, even though they had these dramatically different environments.
Yeah, environment wasn't impactful at all, basically.
Right.
On these huge decisions.
Minor things, probably like if you look at the way they dress and different stuff,
Yeah.
But they might either both be conservative or, in their dress because there's so much involved in it. Anyways, so the reason why I'm saying all this about all this stuff is that they pushed a thing that everybody's equal so that they could change the ethnic makeup of the United States.
Well, and I mean, Europe at this point too, they're doing the
same
thing.
Yeah. We care specifically, but Europe and like not China, not Japan, not South Korea.
Well, they've got laws in place to protect this from happening.
Right. And so we're going to get to the law they signed and talk about that, but we had talked in a previous video about the law of self-determination.
Okay.
And that is just the law that means that in a region, whatever the ethnic group of that region is, has 100% authority to choose their future, Right. And so in situations like where, say, like, I know this is spicy, but like where Russia is like, hey, Crimea is ours. And then you look in Crimea and they're like, I just make up a number, 87% Russian. And then they all vote. 87% of the people want to join Russia. The law of self-determination says, cool, you're now part of Russia. Or you want your independence and the ethnic group gets to choose, you know? You're not supposed to be ruled over by another. That's the law of self-determination. It's worked through the recent history of man, the modern history of man, we'll say. And so the problem with taking a majority population and turning them into a minority over a period of time is that that's in absolute defiance of the law of self-determination.
Yeah.
When that is happening, it's the duty of the majority to absolutely crush, destroy the system that's doing that to them. Make sure all the tyrants are hanged, put a new system in place that is not doing that to them so that they can preserve their future, and the future of their culture and on language or just whatever, it's depending on the country. And then figure out how to correct the system. So basically they changed it all in 1965. It's called the Immigration and Nationality Act, known as the Hart-Celler Act. It abolished the national quota system and replaced it with a system whereby immigrants are admitted based on their relationship to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident family member or U.S. employer. Okay. When they went to do the Hart-Celler Act, they said, hey, we're going to do this, and it's not going to change the racial makeup of the country. And, I guess people believed them, maybe.
Maybe.
And then we got lots of rioting now. I mean, it's pretty great,
Yeah.
Lots of, I was just telling a random story last night, and because there's something related to the story, the word had come up, and I was telling my wife the story. I was 17, and this random black guy on the street. Next thing you know, I'm trying to cut his throat. Like he's punching me, and I'm trying to get the throat with the knife. You know what I mean? And she's looking at me like, "What the heck are you talking about?" You know what I mean? Oh yeah, but that's big city life, though.
Yeah.
Like that's what we got. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Makes for
It seems good.
good story. Anyways, so basically, the point of this video is that we've been completely and absolutely betrayed.
Right.
And I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about Americans. I'm talking about the black people got betrayed, not the recent African immigrants. I'm talking about the originals,
Oh, okay.
Everybody pre the ending of slavery that was forced, came over here or tricked, like whatever the situation was, and ended up in that situation and then bound by those. It's terrible what it's become.
Yeah, totally.
And it pushes ever onward incredibly rapidly.
Right.
And it's just the entire immigration system's such a joke, What would you think would be the final solution to this problem?
Like within the system or just...
No, there's no solution within the system at all.
Right.
Check out that video if you haven't seen it. There's absolutely zero chance of a solution within the system. Okay. Say we find some Americans who have a small amount of courage.
Okay.
And then the system is destroyed.
Okay.
Now what?
Well, I feel like you have to... I think the word is balkanize. That's when the groups are just make their own areas, like that type of thing.
Okay.
When everybody's in the same spot, there is no culture. They've all got their own cultures, and no one benefits from that. I just feel like everyone's culture is great, but just enrich yourselves and do your own thing. And
okay, so let's talk Sweden.
Okay.
Sweden has brought in a bunch of, I don't know, Afghanis or Pakis or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then they've completely isolated them into their own regions so that they can have their own culture separate from the superior Swedish, whatever they're thinking with that plan. I have no idea. So you're saying the answer for Sweden, if they had a good system, is to break off part of Sweden, give it to the Afghanis and Pakis. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. Well, if we're talking about if I'm supreme leader, then no. I was just doing a nice American type of solution where everyone's playing nice together, like melting pot, but make it work. If I was doing my own thing, I would be moving people back to where they came from.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like the idea of balkanization is as foolish as saying, hey, let's get 1 million white people. We'll go to one region of North Mexico, right?
Right.
We'll pack it. We'll say harass the actual Mexicans who deserve that land, push them out, and then we'll say law of self-determination, baby. We're part of America, 51st state. It doesn't work like that. I think that's trash, actually.
Yeah.
You'd be trash if you did it. Even if you didn't have that such negative motivation like in my fake story right there. But I would say that if I were supreme leader, here's what I would do, okay? I would say prior to 1965, the immigration laws represented the best interest of the pre-1965 Americans and kind of the goals of the founding fathers, right?
Okay.
And I would say this 1965 act was an absolute betrayal of America. I think everybody involved in it should be held accountable. So it was from 1965. So, boy, I guess I'm a resentful person. I want people exhumed, removed from these fancy Arlingtons and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like just terrible.
You betrayed your people.
You betrayed your country, like in the worst way possible. It's like a Russian, like a Russian like Congress or something, and they get together and say, let's give the country to our neighbors, the Mongolians. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Also, don't go hurt the Mongolians because they got their own country and they're cool people too, But anyways, I would say, hey, if get ready for spicy, right?
I'm ready.
If you immigrated to the country after 1965, and you would have been eligible perhaps to come in pre-1965, then you can present your case.
Okay.
And the problem is you can't define that to any quotas. You know what I'm saying? Because then if you try to say like a quota and you say, okay, well, 3% of Swedish people from blah, 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 you know? But the Swedish people could have got in 1966 or 1964. They came in 1966, but too many Swedes came in, we'll just say, you know? Sorry, you can't do that.
Just chronologically, when they hit the...
No, but you don't get punished for coming in December instead of January. That's rough.
It depends how spicy.
Okay. Yeah, it depends. Okay.
And then the people who aren't there, what are you doing with them? The people who did not qualify to pre-1965 laws, what are you doing with them?
I would just treat them really nice and repatriate them. But I would treat them very, very nice.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know? Like, I would treat them how they've treated America, right? So if you said, hey, I totally realized that I shouldn't have come. Okay, so for example, let me tell you a story, right? I was an Uber driver, mentioned this in a previous video, pick up this young lady and taking her to her fast food job. And over the course of a couple of rides, I get the story. And the story is that her parents are from Iraq, I believe. And he was a doctor and she was a statesperson or something. Like they're like, you know, say top 10% minimum in Iraq. And basically what happened is they had filed for refugee status. And then they just didn't hear anything. A couple years went by. Now they're completely safe and everything's great. And then they get a paper saying, hey, you've been accepted. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll go. Yeah, we'll go. You're a violation of everything right now. You are not at the moment a refugee, right? Yeah. And so you're taking advantage of the system. I just don't look kindly on that. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I would not be nice to people who've taken like illegal immigration.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Previous illegal immigrants who've been what do they call it?
Export or not exported?
No. Where they get given citizenship. What is it? Mass citizenship to the illegal immigrants.
Oh, not clemency. Yeah, I can't think of the word.
Ridiculous. Like if Ronald Reagan gave that to you, sorry, but I'm sorry, that's still trash. Yeah. You know, because you know what the Republicans were doing. They wanted their cheap labor so they keep their corporations happy. So they keep wages down for Americans. That was the Republicans of the time, not this time. That's the Democrats of this time. It just depends. It doesn't really, matter what part of the uniparty you're from. But I'm just saying, sorry, the whole thing's trash.
Right.
And it's funny because it's like they try to lock us into the system as it is by just making everything bigger. Because if you make everything bigger, if you make the freeway like, we'll just say like in China, it's 25 lanes to either side, you need a minimum amount of people to keep the infrastructure intact.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you look at Detroit, you need a minimum amount of people there to keep the city alive. And so then the problem is like, if people had violated the system and then they end up here and then you're like, hey, you shouldn't be here. You got to go. It's like, but you need me because of your massive infrastructure that you've got because of me.
We just let certain cities just die off. Just move people to other cities.
Recycle the cities.
Something.
Did you hear about Trump's Freedom Cities? Off topic.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so he did a new platform. It's Freedom Cities and stimulus for babies or something. Like, I don't know if it's a tax credit or something. Joe Biden did a thing, I mean, we were getting checks. They were, it was like 2021. They were sending you a check each month. I don't know if you remember the story.
But that was just taking the taxes you get back at the end of the year and just giving it to you.
Right.
Sooner.
But it was an increase of what you would have gotten. I mean, I think it was a doubling or something. I don't remember. But anyways, yeah, he's got these freedom cities. Well, we could build more cities, right?
Get rid of the cities.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah, or something. Because there's other ideas, I feel like. Mm-hmm. I feel like the idea of a city as large as these doesn't work at all. And I think I had this Uber ride with this Chinese businessman, American, and he was telling us about how inferior Americans are because the problem is they just don't go vertical enough. Because what you want to do is you want to cram all the people into these enormous skyscrapers. I mean, because you got to get like, if you're like a top tier city, it's like over 20 million or something, And so, or whatever the number is. But he's like, because it's so much easier for the plumbing, for the electricity, what about quality of life, bud?
It's a prison tower.
And I get it that even though he's like a full American, he's not like a Chinese guy you're talking to. He is. But just the values are so incredibly different.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. Take your dog down 80 flights of, 80 on the elevator so you can walk him around on the concrete, so that you can find one little bush and hopefully he wants to pee at that moment. If he has to poo, God forbid, because you can't find a piece of dirt. Sounds terrible.
I feel like the ideal way is to be able to go around your whole house and not see one neighbor.
Right.
And that's really the ideal.
Right.
Not living just in a giant tower. It's crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, we're way off topic.
Yeah.
But whatever. We'll meander to the end right now. So basically, yeah, that's all I got to say.
So this has obviously been done on purpose.
Yes.
What is the motivation?
Okay. So we've increased the spiciness now. Okay. The motivation is because the American people from the founding fathers to a certain period of time are extraordinary people. And that what happened is we got all the people from like Northwestern Europe and other parts of Europe come over here who just really had that drive and ambition. So we end up with this fiercely independent and strong-spirited people, right? And what happens is a very small amount of people want to control these people. And if you were more sheepy, not necessarily, but if you were more sheepy, you would tend to stay in Europe. So we pulled off a lot of the bravery, ambition, and spirit. So we've got these amazing, vibrant ancestors in this country at this point, but there's a small group of people who wants to control us, bankers and different groups of people, that work together and, ESG and just, we got all the videos. A lot of them. Anyways. And so the best way to do it is to dilute the population.
Okay, water it down.
Right. And I'm not even saying replace the population. You just have to put enough of a different variety of, it's not like, don't bring all people from Africa. That's not part of the plan. We got Southeast Asia, East Asia, we need to bring them from everywhere so that we got the maximum number of different religions. So we got the maximum different, that's all the cracks. And then anytime we want, you think you're doing good, we'll just start hammering away at them cracks. So it's to weaken the foundation so that the tyrants can continue to rule the population.
And there's no one left to stand up to them because the people
right. There's not enough cohesiveness in the group that's left to stand up for them
because it's all a bunch of tiny little groups.
No, I'm talking specifically about the white people.
Okay,
because the tiny groups don't matter to the groups who are controlling us.
Right.
Because it's like if you're coming from, say, a very poor part of Nigeria or something, right? You know who the nicest people are? African immigrants. The biggest smiles. They're kids, though. That'll be something else. But they're so happy to be here.
Yeah.
So you could tell that guy, you're being ruled over by tyrants. And he'd be like, cool. He's happy. He's happy.
He's got here. A great life. Yeah.
It's going great. Right. And then, so it's just the white people that you have to, well, I guess, the black people too have to be controlled because they've had a terrible shake of it historically. And so the goal is to create as much division as possible. And if you've watched any amount of news, you know that it's just all division.
Right.
Because it's in our best interest to unite and stand up and fix things.
Right.
Whatever the final solutions are, I'm just saying that's their goal.
Gotcha.
Is to break us up.
Okay. That's how I read it too.
Okay. So if you enjoyed this video, we appreciate if you'd like and subscribe. And if you've got criticism, hit me with it. Go ahead. I'll respond. If it's, I shouldn't have said that, but if it's intelligent criticism, because we get a lot of off-topic criticism. And so like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
And if you're Supreme Leader, what would you do?
Oh, I would like to know, honestly.
What is your solution?
Yeah. Give us your final solution.
That's what we got.
Okay, bye.